So you lost a button on your shirt. This is probably one of the things that are gonna come up most frequently when you're repairing your clothing. So here you can see where I lost the button. So what are you gonna need to repair this button? You're gonna need a needle, really any size needle, sewing needle, you can get them almost anywhere. Thread, preferably thread that matches the buttons that are already on the shirt, or the color of the shirt, or the color of the button. In this case, they are sort of white pearl style buttons with white thread, so I am going with white thread. The button, if you still have it, if not, the closest match that you can get to that button, a pair of scissors. Things that you might also want is a thimble. That just helps with not poking your finger so much. And a threader. So this is a threader, and it simply just helps you pull the thread through the needle if you need it. So when you're threading your needle, you're going to take the thread and try to put it through the little hole at the top of the needle that I can't get the camera to focus on right now. And for a button, I usually recommend that you double your thread. This is probably a little long for a button, but it'll get the job done. And then I just like to tie the very end of the two threads in a little knot, and I usually do 2 knots or 3 knots on top of each other, just to create enough of a knot at the end so that it's stopped when going through the shirt. For this shirt, you can easily see where the button came off, but if not, you're going to want to sort of measure the distance between the other buttons on the article of clothing if they have it. These buttons are obviously about 4 of my fingers width apart. So the next button should be about 4 finger widths apart, just to make sure that they're even. But if your article of clothing doesn't have other buttons, just line it up to the best of your ability to where your existing buttonhole is. And that's where to basically just put your finger so you know that's where you want your button to be. So the first thing that you're going to want to do when you're applying a button is to make sort of your base stitch. So you're going to start from the back of the article of clothing, and you're just going to run a stitch without the button at all. Just a simple stitch, and that's just going to be your base that sort of holds your thread so that your button doesn't get loose, right? Then you're going to want to place your button over where that base stitch is. And now, because my shirt has other buttons, I'm going to want to repeat the pattern that these buttons already have, which is a cross pattern for the button stitch. Depending on the article of clothing that you're using is going to depend on the stitch that you do. But you can see here with the existing buttons that it is sort of a cross stitch. So you're going to start with your needle coming through the back end of the shirt and go through any one of your holes. So you pull it up all the way so that your thread is tight and your button should be where it is on the shirt. And then for this, because we're going crossways, we're just going to go back down in the cross position. And always just make sure that you're pulling tight through each stitch. Now, you can go up through the other hole on the top, pull all the way through, and then follow through and go back down. Now you can see where how the cross is forming. You just want to continue that pattern multiple times. I usually try to do it at least, 3 or 4 times in the same pattern that you started with. And then you're gonna cross back over and then come back up in the opposite buttonhole. Oops, on the button, and then come back down here. This other button likes this part. Okay, and do that a couple more times, just so you can make sure that this button is nice and secure. All right, and once you've done enough pass-throughs that you think that that button is going to be nice and secure on the shirt, you want to come up from the back side as close to the button as possible, but don't go through one of the holes. Come through on the back side of the button. We're going to twist the thread around the base of the button, and then we are going to come back down to create a secure finish for your button. And then you're going to just tie this off in the back. Okay, so once you've tied it in the back, now you have a secure button and the shirt is repaired.